Number 9. Cape Buffalo. Nicknamed the Black Death, the Cape Buffalo is rumored to be responsible for the deaths of more big game hunters than any other animal in Africa. The Cape buffalo is a subspecies of the African buffalo found throughout the southern and eastern parts of the continent. These animals are not only large in size, weighing as much as 2,000 pounds, or roughly 900 kilos, and measuring up to 5.5 feet, or 1.7 meters at the shoulder, but they also travel in sizable herds, numbering anywhere from 50 to 500. Known for being unpredictable and short-tempered, the Cape buffalo is quick to become aggressive, especially when injured or when a calf is in danger, or they think you are the danger. Its typical method of attack is to circle and stalk their target before charging forward at up to 35 miles per hour or 56 k's an hour. A herd will charge in unison and engage in mobbing behavior to take down a perceived threat or enemy, but these gargantuan bovines are plenty dangerous on their own. But generally speaking, people can avoid deadly interactions with the species simply by leaving them alone, which is all they really want from humans. 8. Centipedes. Centipedes are carnivorous and venomous and, frankly, a little disgusting, and while they typically only pursue insects, worms and other prey, they will not hesitate to sting a human when threatened. According to Science magazine, their highly potent venom can kill a mouse up to 15 times a centipede's size in just 30 seconds. The larger the centipede, the more venom a specimen is likely to inject. And while bites can be extremely painful to humans, they are rarely fatal. But there are a few exceptions, of course. Some people experience a serious and potentially deadly reaction to the toxins in centipede venom, including severe cardiovascular and neurological symptoms. A typical bite comes with pain, swelling and redness, but fever, chills, nausea, extreme swelling, itching, heart palpitations and swollen lymph nodes all indicate the possibility of an allergic reaction. There is one recorded case of a bite victim experiencing anaphylaxis, which occurred when a 23-year-old man was bitten on his left pinky by a nearly 8-inch or 20-centimeter long centipede. His face began to swell and a rash broke out within 5 minutes, and by the time 10 minutes had passed, the man was feeling discomfort in his chest and becoming increasingly unresponsive. Thankfully, he was rushed to the emergency room, treated and released the next day. The only reported fatality from centipede venom occurred in the Philippines in 1932 when a 7-year-old girl fell extremely ill and died after being bitten on the head. A 2018 study found that one of the toxins in centipede venom blocks the channels that transport potassium in and out of cells, and that this can disrupt the body's ability to perform numerous functions, including sending brainwaves and maintaining a steady heartbeat. Scientists hope that identifying the component is a step toward developing an antivenom. 7. Nile crocodile. Are you really surprised that the Nile crocodile is on this list? Measuring up to 20 feet or 6 meters long, the Nile crocodile, Crocodilius niloticus, is Africa's largest crocodile and the world's second largest crocodilian. A fully grown adult male can weigh as much as 1,543 pounds or 700 kilos and has up to 68 sharp, conical teeth. In addition to its ability to take down pretty much any animal it sets its sights on, including hippopotamuses, wildebeests and buffalo, the species is known throughout the continent as a man-eater, and there's scientific data to back this claim. Between 2000 and 2016, Nile crocodiles were responsible for 268 documented killings, although it's believed that the actual numbers are much higher, versus just 33 deaths that occurred at the hands of American alligators and crocodiles during the same time span. Speaking with National Geographic, crocodilian expert Adam Rosenblatt said that Nile crocodiles are known for being highly aggressive. Not only will they eat almost anything, they're opportunistic ambush predators equipped with a virtually inescapable bite force that enables them to hold their victims underwater for long periods of time. Nile crocodiles have a wide range, spanning 26 African countries, and the population is considered stable, meaning it's not unusual for them to cross paths with humans. In fact, although the species is known for being particularly hostile, its tendency to live in close proximity to people is one reason why attacks are so frequent. Simply put, these unwanted encounters between humans and crocodiles happen far more often throughout Africa than they do in many other places, naturally increasing the chances of an attack. Experts have long studied these interactions and have cited numerous causal factors, including an alleged fear of the reptiles among locals. Whatever the case, the bottom line is that the chances of winning against a Nile crocodile are slim to none, and the best way to prevent being harmed or killed is to avoid these creatures at all costs. 6. Freshwater snails. Did you know every year as many as 200,000 people die from coming in contact with small but deadly freshwater snails who carry a parasitic disease? This disease is called schistosomiasis. Infections most commonly happen in Africa, Asia, and South America. A person puts themselves at risk of contracting schistosomiasis just by entering the water, according to disease ecologist Suzanne Sicolo, who spoke with the public radio show The World. She further explained that the parasites leave snails to enter the human body, where they can live for decades. Their barbed eggs are what harm humans, Sicolo added, stating that they become lodged in various parts of the body and can cause a host of unpleasant symptoms, including fatigue, anemia, and even death, with an estimated 10% of chronic cases proving fatal. While the Western world developed drugs to combat schistosomiasis, some countries introduced snail predators into the environment and experienced impressive results in the form of noticeably reduced infection rates. This method was so successful, in fact, that Sicolo says scientists are now investigating it as a viable solution. Some people are concerned that reducing the snail population would come with environmental consequences. When asked about this, Sicolo justified the concept based on the value of human lives and the possibility of reducing human suffering, adding that if done properly, decreasing the number of freshwater snails would be more beneficial than anything. Were you aware of this deadly parasitic disease snails carry? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. 5. Tigers. By nature, tigers are solitary, shy creatures who usually avoid contact with humans. But like almost any member of the animal kingdom, these majestic big cats will attack a person when they feel threatened, especially if they have cubs to protect. Tiger attacks against humans are steadily on the rise as governments work to restore the big cat's population, and as tigers and humans live in increasingly close proximity to one another. In early 2014, BBC reported that tigers killed 17 people throughout India over a 5-week span. Scientists believe that in some rare cases, tigers develop a taste for human blood and become so-called man-eaters. But this certainly isn't the norm, and by going near a tiger, a person risks triggering the animal to respond instinctively when they may not otherwise become aggressive. Experts recommend avoiding venturing into the heart of a tiger preserve as one somewhat obvious way of avoiding such an encounter. But sometimes tigers exit their designated territory and make their way into villages, especially when they are old or weak and looking for vulnerable prey. Babu Bhattarai, a human wildlife conflict researcher writing for the Himalayan Times, pointed out that managing problem tigers is a key component to reducing attacks against humans. Although tigers are protected, wildlife officers are allowed to euthanize them under extenuating circumstances, including when a big cat threatens human lives and safety. Relocating disruptive tigers who were displaced from their habitat through competition is another way officials can prevent the worst from happening. Bhattarai also advises locals who must go into tiger territory to gather materials from the forest, to travel in groups, carry a big stick, and avoid traveling into the woods at dawn or dusk when tigers are most active. 4. Mosquitoes. Chances are you've experienced a mosquito bite at some point throughout your life. And while it was probably itchy beyond irritation, it likely went away fairly quickly without causing any major health issues. But mosquitoes are considered one of the planet's deadliest animals because of their disease-transmitting capabilities, which result in anywhere from 750,000 to millions of deaths globally per year, depending on which source you consult. People with weakened immune systems are particularly vulnerable to the illnesses spread by mosquitoes, such as dengue fever, yellow fever, Zika infection, and malaria, just to name a few. There are no vaccines or specific medications available for many of these viruses, and mosquito-borne disease epidemics are on the rise in recent years, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC. Because mosquitoes are such effective transmitters and many species have evolved to become immune to pesticides that were once effective, preventing the spread of these diseases is incredibly difficult. 3. Hippopotamuses. In the past, hippos have been portrayed in pop culture as sluggish, gentle giants, but this couldn't be further from the truth. Not only are these semi-aquatic creatures massive, measuring up to 16.5 feet or 5 meters long and weighing as much as 9,900 pounds or 4,490 kilos, they're inherently aggressive and are equipped with large teeth and tusks that can easily take out whatever is in their way. According to Live Science, hippos are so short-fused, they've been known to hurt or even kill their young who get caught in the midst of a fight between two adults. Humans are no exception to the creature's rage. It's said that hippos kill as many as 500 people every year in Africa, making them one of the world's deadliest large land animals. You may be surprised to know, after learning all this, that hippos are plant eaters for the most part. They eat up to 80 pounds or 35 kilos of grass and fruit every night and can store food in their stomach, which enables them to go up to 3 weeks without eating during a food shortage. In other words, hippos don't attack humans and other creatures out of severe hunger or a desire to eat them, although they do occasionally scavenge animal carcasses. They're just extremely territorial, and those with offspring to protect are especially prone to aggression. Many of these violent encounters result from us and them coming into unnaturally close contact, including when hippos wander onto land in search of food or when humans enter their territory. In 2014, for example, an irate female hippopotamus flipped a boat carrying school children across the Niger River in West Africa. Sadly, all 12 kids and 1 adult died. 2. Scorpions. Scorpions have a pretty bad rep, but it isn't without merit. Equipped with stingers that inject potent neurotoxins into their victims, these creatures certainly have killing power. But out of the 2,500 or so known scorpion species, only 25 are capable of delivering fatal stings to humans, and only around 3,500 people worldwide die each year from scorpion stings. In the US, the Arizona bark scorpion, Centroides sculpturatus, is the only scorpion with the capacity to kill a person out of the 80 known species throughout the country. Writing for Slate, Brendan Corner pointed out that even one sting from one of the deadlier species usually won't kill a healthy adult, but children, the elderly, and people with weakened immune systems are at a higher risk of dying. The Indian red scorpion, Hottentotta tamulus, is said to be the world's most lethal. Found throughout parts of India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, these creatures are no more than 3.5 inches long, or 8.9 centimeters. Despite their small size, their venom packs a powerful punch, causing nausea, skin discoloration, heart problems, fluid accumulation in the lungs, and possibly even death. Despite all that, scorpions are not innately aggressive and generally do not attack humans. Most stings result from people accidentally stepping on or otherwise threatening the creatures. Number 1. Elephants. Elephants are extremely intelligent and social creatures with a reputation for being gentle giants, but they are also prone to aggression and actually kill as many as 500 people per year, according to National Geographic. In recent years, elephant attacks on humans have risen dramatically as human activity pushes them into increasingly small spaces and in closer proximity to growing human populations. Elephants do not attack people for food. In fact, they are just plant eaters. But in many places, they have come to see humans as a threat, especially because residents and farmers often harass or shoot at the animals for trampling on and eating their crops. Captive elephants are also known to turn on people. This is usually caused by the devastating psychological effects that life in confinement has on these extremely social creatures, who are absolutely not meant to be kept in cages. During a period called must, male elephants experience a dramatic increase in reproductive hormones. This process is not very well understood because elephants in must become so highly aggressive, scientists have not been able to safely study them very closely. When an elephant does decide to attack, there's little chance of escape. Capable of delivering a single lethal blow, these massive mammals are known to gore or stomp on people who get in their way without warning. Managing problematic wild elephants is challenging. Killing them is not an ideal solution because most populations are endangered, although some countries have started hosting controlled hunts. And as dangerous as elephants may be in some cases, they have far more reasons to fear us than the other way around. After all, it is human activity that brought their numbers perilously low.
Number 10. Great White Shark Attack. Keith Poe was in his fishing boat off the coast of Los Angeles when he was struck by a literal sea monster. In this case, the sea monster came in the form of a great white shark. According to Keith himself, the shark struck his vessel with such outstanding force that he first thought he had been hit by a sailboat. But the attack didn't stop with a single headbutt. According to the report in Men's Journal, Keith was attacked 7 different times during a small window of only 3 days. The attacks usually came at sunrise or sunset. The largest of these sharks measured about 18 feet, over 5 meters long. Yikes! As it turned out, the shark, or sharks, were riled up because a huge humpback whale known locally as Wally had washed ashore, drawing sharks into the area. The carcass was towed off the beach 3 times, but it kept drifting back. The sharks were so eager to sink their teeth into the dead whale and so frustrated they couldn't seem to reach it that they took out their anger on Keith's boat instead. Luckily, nobody was injured, though Keith's boat did suffer superficial damage from the vicious fish. Number 9. The Anne Alexander. The Anne Alexander was a whaling ship from Massachusetts and one of the only vessels confirmed to have actually been sunk by a real sea monster. This time, the sea monster was a sperm whale. It attacked Anne Alexander on August 20, 1851. At the time, the ship was under the command of Captain John de Blois. The ship was about 3,000 miles or 4,800 kilometres from the coast of South America when they spotted a whale. The ship dropped 2 separate whaleboats, one with the first mate in command, the other with the captain. The first mate managed to harpoon a whale, but after he got the harpoon tethered, the whale turned and opened its jaws and destroyed the boat in a single bite. It was lucky that there was a second whaleboat as the captain rowed over and saved the crewmen from the shattered vessel. There were then 12 men stuck in a single boat and quite far from their ship. They managed to evade further attacks by the whale and get back to the Anne Alexander, at which point it was agreed they would continue to hunt the whale. After all, now it was personal. But things didn't end well for the whalers. They got a second harpoon into the giant beast's head, but it only made it even more upset, understandably so. The whale charged at the ship, smashing a hole in the hull of the Anne Alexander below the waterline. Within minutes, the boat began flooding. All 22 men aboard had to abandon ship and wait to be rescued while they watched the Anne Alexander sink and the whale swim away. Number 8. Giant squid attack. A French yacht was taking part in a round-the-world sailing competition when they were attacked by a giant squid in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Veteran yachtsman Oliver de Kersorson was at the helm of his yacht when the boat was unexpectedly struck by curious vibrations. Oliver sent a crewmate below deck to identify the issue, and that was when he saw something moving. He saw tentacles squirming around underwater. The squid had grabbed hold of the yacht and was trying to pull it beneath the surface. Nobody knew what the squid's motive was, but it was definitely trying to take down the ship. In response, Oliver brought the vessel to a complete stop. Once the ship stopped moving, the squid let go. Oliver and the crew looked behind them and saw the squid hovering there in the water, absolutely enormous, like some kind of biblical monster. Oliver said that he had been sailing for 40 years and never seen anything quite as horrifying. The boat did get away in the end, but it was pure luck. Eyewitnesses claimed the squid was at least 30 feet or 9 meters long, meaning it could easily have taken down the yacht if it had wanted to. Number 7. Kayaker attack. At 6:30 in the morning, David Alexander took his kayak out to Shelter Cove to get a little rest and relaxation. David is a superintendent at Bellevue Union School District in Santa Rosa and really needed some time off. Kayaking seemed like the perfect escape. But what began as a day of escapism turned into a terrifying nightmare that David will never forget. The day was almost over and David was heading back to shore when suddenly he heard a thud and felt his boat lift up. At first he thought he had gotten stuck on a rock, but then he saw the grey flesh of the shark below him. The shark then exploded out of the water and sank its teeth into his kayak, literally ripping the front of the boat to shreds. The force of the bite was enough to throw David out of the boat. He landed in the water and was face to face with the deadly fish. It was an absolute miracle that the shark didn't eat him. He was literally close enough for the shark to reach out and give him a kiss, and yet the shark let go of the kayak, turned around and disappeared. David got back to land fine, but he would need a new kayak and probably a new pair of underpants. What would you do if you were thrown from your kayak into the water with a shark? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit thumbs up and the subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 6. Death by swordfish. On August 19, 1886, Captain Franklin D. Langsford from Massachusetts sailed away from his schooner in a small dory and saw a swordfish. It was about 8 miles or 13 kilometres from Ipswich Bay. The captain chased down the swordfish, shot a harpoon at it, then left the harpoon line attached to a buoy. Franklin then decided to go back to the main vessel for dinner. About an hour later, he got back into his dory and went out to pick up his swordfish. He arrived at his buoy, grabbed hold of the line and began to pull himself towards the rather large fish. He was about to lance the swordfish when it suddenly turned, rushed underneath his boat and thrust its nose up at the bottom of the wooden dory and impaled the captain straight through his body. In the end, the swordfish actually got stuck with its nose piercing the vessel and the captain both. The captain's schooner eventually came along and he was helped on board by his crew. The dory and the giant swordfish had to be hoisted into the schooner together. The fish was eventually killed and weighed over 300 pounds or 130 kilos. The captain survived for only 3 days before dying from his injuries. Number 5. Sunk by a giant jellyfish. The Nomura's jellyfish is one of the most daunting creatures of the deep. It's not traditionally scary like a shark or a squid, but it is an authentic danger that can not only kill a lonely swimmer, but also an entire ship full of fishermen. Something like this actually happened in Japan when an enormous jellyfish sank a fishing trawler. According to Fox News, the boat capsized just off the coast of Japan as its crew tried to haul in a net filled with Nomura's jellyfish. Nobody knows why, but an army of these gelatinous giants gathered between the Japanese coastline and the Korean peninsula, and fishermen began accidentally reeling in nets full of them. This is bad news because the Nomura's jellyfish can grow to be over 6 feet or 1.8 metres in diameter. They can also grow to be up to 400 pounds, over 180 kilos. In any case, there were way too many jellyfish in the net. As the crew tried to haul them in, they were tossed into the sea. The immense weight of the jellies tipped the boat over and sank it, and the 3 fishermen probably would have died if not for another trawler that happened to be in the area that came to their rescue. The invasion of Nomura's jellyfish was so severe that some salmon boats stopped going out into the ocean, and many fishermen ended up losing up to 80% of their income. It was even reported that nuclear plants in the area kept getting jellyfish sucked up into their pumps, causing technical issues. Why these jellies decided to invade this area is still a mystery. Number 4. Crushed by a whale. A kayaker survived the encounter of a lifetime after a humpback whale bigger than 2 buses put together did a belly flop on top of his head. The British tourist was a 35-year-old man visiting Monterey Bay in the San Francisco area. This is a hotspot for checking out whales and going on kayak tours. He opted for the kayak tour and went out not really expecting to see too much. What he got instead was a close encounter with a whale over 33 tons. That's 30,000 kilograms. Which jumped out of the water in front of his kayak and then crashed down sideways onto him. He was sucked into the water by the preposterous force created by the giant humpback whale. He was then tossed around like a rag doll in a river before eventually orientating himself and getting back to the surface. Amazingly, he didn't suffer any serious injuries. According to the New York Post, the kayaker said himself in a later interview that the beast was so huge it literally blocked out the sun when it leapt out of the water. He could see water dripping off the grooves of its body and then all of a sudden, blackness. One thing he claimed to remember after the incident is that the whale smelled absolutely horrifying, giving a whole new meaning to the term fish breath. Number 3. German U-boat attack. In World War I, a German submarine was allegedly attacked by an unidentified sea monster. This happened in the Irish Sea in 1918 when 2 German U-boats were defeated and sunk by British patrol ships. The story has been circulating online for quite a long time. So far as the tale goes, the UB-3 class submarine was damaged by a sea creature seen by every one of the crew, all of whom described the mysterious thing as looking like a giant mutated crocodile. The creature caused so much damage that the submarine was forced to the surface, at which point the British forces took it out. To this day, nobody has been able to put forth a logical theory as to what could possibly have ravaged a German submarine during the war. Some believe it never happened. Marine archaeologist Innes McCartney claims that there was probably never a giant sea monster at all, and that the tale became popular in the 1930s when stories of sea monsters started circling the globe. And to make matters worse for the story, the submarine was found just a couple of years ago off the coast of Scotland. After taking composite images using sonar scans, there appeared to be no claw or teeth marks from any kind of monster. Number 2. Killer whale attack. Victor Littlefield was out with his teenage son and 2 of his son's friends having a relaxing afternoon on his 33-foot or 10-metre aluminium boat. It was just another lazy Sunday. But then, out of nowhere, the boat lurched violently. Victor's first thought was that they were under siege by a deadly great white shark, though that was probably because he had just watched Jaws the previous day. There was no shark attacking his boat. Instead, it was an even more dangerous killer whale. The killer whale, also known as an orca whale, smashed into his boat several times before it grabbed hold of his anchor and gave it a tug. yanking Victor's boat around like a toy in a bathtub. The whale then swam at the boat and slapped it with its tail. All signs pointed to a serious attack, and this was even more dangerous because there were 3 young teens on board. In the end, the entire incident lasted just a couple of minutes. The whale did eventually swim away with the line from the ship's anchor, which it had somehow ripped off during its furious attack. Luckily, nobody was harmed. To this day, Victor has no idea why the orca attacked him. Number 1. Otter escape. In a shocking turn of events, a clever otter recently escaped certain death in Alaska's Halibut Cove Lagoon after using John Dornella's boat as salvation. John had been watching the horrifying struggle, not knowing what to do. The orca was clearly teasing the otter, having a bit of fun before it finally got bored and decided to tear it apart. But the otter proved just a little too wily for the sadistic whale. Just at the last second, the otter made an evasive manoeuvre, scrambled out of the water and climbed onto John's boat. The panicked little critter then sat next to the engine while John watched the whale splash around, clearly having a temper tantrum because its dinner had just got away. John then let the otter hang out on his boat until the coast was clear. The otter didn't say thank you when it left, but it didn't really need to. John was fairly certain the animal was thankful to still be alive.
Number 9. Giant African land snail. The internet is littered with photographs of giant African land snails that make them look much bigger than they actually are, owing to a concept called forced perspective. But their large size isn't entirely an optical illusion. As one of the largest terrestrial gastropods on Earth, African land snails grow up to 8 inches or 20 centimeters long, about the size of an adult fist, and between 2.7 and 3.9 inches or 6.9 to 10 centimeters tall. While some people may find this horrifying, many think that the species is cute in its own bizarre way. But if you're one of those people and you live in the US, don't get any ideas about owning one as a pet. Not only is it illegal in many states to own one, caring for these creatures is extremely difficult because it's imperative to make sure that they don't breed. But it's also extremely hard to stop this from happening because the species is hermaphroditic, meaning individuals possess all the equipment necessary to procreate without a partner, with each snail laying up to 1,200 eggs every year. Imagine having one snail, then out of nowhere, you have 1,200! The giant African land snail is also considered one of the world's 100 most harmful invasive species. With an appetite for over 500 different plants, they are the opposite of picky eaters and can cause extensive damage to crops and agriculture. Populations have proven problematic in Hawaii and Florida, where they arrived in 1936 and 1966. The Florida government spent a decade and over $1 million eradicating the invasive species, only for it to reappear in 2011. Not only is the snail giant, they cause giant problems too. 8. Golden Gate Bridge. Spanning the 1 mile or 1.6 kilometer strait that connects the San Francisco Bay to the Pacific Ocean, the Golden Gate Bridge was built in just over 4 years' time between 1933 and 1937. At the time of its completion, it nabbed the record for the longest bridge span in the world, with the distance between supports measuring 4,200 feet, or about 1,080 meters. It also had the tallest towers out of any bridge on Earth, measuring 746 feet, or 227 meters above the water, and 500 feet, or 152 meters above the road. Since then, the Golden Gate Bridge has been far surpassed in size, but as one of the most recognizable bridges worldwide, it remains iconic in its own right. And at a total length of 8,981 feet, or 2,737 meters, it's far from small. Laid on its side, the Eiffel Tower could fit across the bridge at least 9 times over. Bumper to bumper, it could hold 249 school buses from one end to the other. The Golden Gate Bridge is also extremely heavy. At 840 million pounds, or 382 million kilos, it's heavier than the Empire State Building. Supporting all that weight requires thick cables, with each measuring over 3 feet, or 1 meter in diameter. Each cable contains over 27,500 wires, which would wrap around the planet over 3 times if arranged in one continuous length, according to GoldenGate.org. When the Verrazano Bridge connecting the New York City boroughs of Staten Island and Manhattan opened in 1964, It surpassed the Golden Gate as the world's longest suspension bridge by a mere 60 feet, or 18.3 meters. While the pair still hold the top two positions for the title in the US, they have been superseded globally by at least 9 bridges. 7. Food portions. For many of us, watching our food intake and our figure is a constant uphill battle, and with all the conflicting dieting advice out there, it's easy to misunderstand what we should and shouldn't do. For example, many people don't know the difference between a serving size and a portion size. A serving size is based on a standard measure, while a portion size is the amount of food you consume in a meal, which often constitutes more than one serving. On top of all that confusion, scientific evidence shows that people are inherently bad at gauging appropriate serving sizes, and that we tend to overeat. Not shocking, I know, but bear with me. Simply put, studies have essentially proven that the more we are served, the more we eat. But this isn't entirely our fault, because the decision to overindulge is not always a conscious one. In our minds, an oversized portion may not seem like too much, and it may not seem much different compared to a smaller portion. So what's the takeaway from all this? Well, for one thing, looks can be deceiving. And research shows that being mindful of our portions plays a major role in combating obesity, so it's best not to eyeball it when it comes to how much we eat. Are you totally going to keep an eye on your portions for maybe the rest of the day? And hey, who knows, maybe tomorrow too? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons too. 6. Traffic lights. From below, a traffic light looks small enough to pick up and carry, right? But this simply isn't the case, and a study featured in the Journal of Vision in October 2003 showed that humans underestimate the size of traffic lights from various distances. This failure of size constancy, as the study calls it, was examined among 4 groups of people who viewed traffic lights from 66 feet, or 20 meters, 197 feet, or 60 meters, and 394 feet, or 120 meters away. Each group gauged the size of the light differently, with one group relying on memory, another choosing from a selection of comparison circles, so on and so forth. The results showed that all 4 groups estimated the size of the traffic light's lenses at around 30% smaller than their actual diameter, showing that our perception of them is unreliable from at least as far as 66 feet or 20 meters away. If you've ever seen a traffic light up close at ground level, you probably don't find this hard to believe. The main 2 sizes of 3-lens traffic lights that are used throughout the world have lenses that are either 8 inches, 20.3 centimeters, or a foot, 30.5 centimeters in diameter. Lights with 8-inch lenses stand at approximately 30 inches tall, or 76.2 centimeters, and are 9.5 inches wide, or 24.1 centimeters. The 12-inch pattern lights are 42 inches, or 106 centimeters tall, and 13.5 inches, or 34 centimeters wide, much larger than they seem from a distance. Big cities in the US, like New York and Los Angeles, tend to opt for the larger model due to the high volumes of traffic because they're easier to see from a distance. In the United Kingdom, the 8-inch version is more popular due to the use of highly visible specialty lenses. There are other types of traffic lights, including hybrid versions that use a combination of 8 and 12-inch lenses, which are sometimes used in Canada. Whatever the case, the study shows that regardless of the traffic light's actual dimensions, it appears deceptively small from below. Number 5. Wombats. Wombats are lovely little nocturnal marsupials that live in the mountains, forests and grasslands of Australia and Tasmania. Built for burrowing, they are equipped with compact heads, short legs and strong claws, and they walk with a bit of a waddle. At first glance, wombats seem cute, cuddly and very small, maybe the size of a fat mouse. But they actually grow as big as a medium-sized dog. There are 3 species, the northern hairy-nosed wombat, the southern hairy-nosed wombat, and the common wombat, all of which reach 30 inches or 76 centimeters long on average, and typically weigh between 55 and 85 pounds or 25 to 40 kilos. Their size varies with their distribution, according to the Australian Museum, with Tasmanian specimens usually being on the smaller end of their size range. Females are usually bigger than males, although it's difficult to truly gauge this tendency due to the differences in size based on region. As of 2015, the world's largest living wombat was Patrick, a lifelong resident of the Ballarat Wildlife Park in Victoria, who weighed 84 pounds or 38 kilos at the time of reporting. At 29 years of age, he was also the world's oldest living member of his species. 4. The Star-Spangled Banner. September 14, 1814, during the War of 1812 Battle of Baltimore, Francis Scott Key looked up at the garrison flag flying over Port McHenry in Baltimore Harbor. Filled with patriotism by the sight, as well as the American victory, he sat down and penned what eventually became the American national anthem, known as the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1813, the government commissioned local flag maker Mary Young Pickersgill to sew a flag so large the British would have no difficulty seeing it from a distance. In the words of Fort McHenry commander Major George Armistead, "It's the only American flag with 15 stripes, and its immense size came at the hefty cost of nearly $406, around $5,450 in today's money." Measuring 30 by 42 feet, or 9.1 by 12.8 meters, the flag was adorned with 2 foot wide, or 61 centimeter stripes, and stars measuring 2 feet long, or 61 centimeters in diameter. Today, it's slightly smaller due to wear and tear, measuring 30 by 34 feet, 9.1 by 10.4 meters, but it's still massive, and up close, it looks as big as it is. Like other garrison flags, the Star-Spangled Banner was noticeably larger than typical flags when hoisted on a pole. And like smaller flags, however, it's much larger than it looks from a distance. Anyone who wants to see the Star-Spangled Banner for themselves can visit the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C., where it remains on display following an extensive recent renovation project. 3. Road lines. Driving down the highway, the intermittent lines in the center of the road look pretty tiny, with the average person estimating their length at around 2 feet or 61 centimeters. But federal guidelines actually require these lines to be 10 feet or 3 meters long, and our tendency to misjudge their length points towards the more concerning possibility that we are driving too fast. According to a 2014 Association for Psychological Science article, psychological scientist Dennis Schaffer began researching the topic during the 1990s as a graduate student at Arizona State University, when federal guidelines required road stripes to be 15 feet or 4.6 meters long. By the time he finished, he was an assistant professor at Ohio State University, and the length requirement had shrunk to 10 feet or 3 meters. His research consisted of a series of experiments involving 400 participants who were asked to judge the size of road stripes from 60 feet, 18 meters, or 120 feet, 36.6 meters away, and also while riding in a car going either 25 miles per hour, 40 kilometers an hour, or 60 miles per hour, 97 kilometers per hour. On average, the students estimated the lines at 2 feet or 61 centimeters long in all 3 of the experiments, including back when the lines were longer. Schaffer concluded that for whatever reason, humans tend to erroneously perceive geometry. This concept, known as size constancy, causes us to see certain objects as being the same size, no matter how close or distant we are from them. When it comes to driving, our inability to see things as they are is concerning because it seems like we're covering the same amount of ground no matter how fast we're going. 2. Anglerfish. There are over 200 species of anglerfish in the world's oceans, lurking up to a mile or 1.6 kilometers below the water's surface. To put it bluntly, these deep dwellers are known for being outright hideous. With a gaping mouth full of translucent, razor-sharp teeth and a strange-looking probe protruding from the head, anglerfish resemble something out of a horror movie, or the scene in Finding Nemo. Most are relatively small, growing no more than a foot or 30 centimeters long, and females are often many times larger than the males. But some anglerfish can reach nearly 4 feet or 1 meter in length, which is roughly the equivalent of a 6 or 7-year-old child's height, and weigh as much as 110 pounds or 50 kilos. The biggest species, known as warty sea devils, hail from the Territorial family. In recent weeks, a monstrous-looking anglerfish species known as the Pacific football fish washed ashore on California's Newport Beach. At 18 inches or 45.7 centimeters long, it was larger than average, and scientists jumped at the chance to study the seldom-seen creature. Number 1. Titanic. When the Titanic set sail in 1912, it was the largest luxury ship ever built, measuring 882 feet or 269 meters long, 92 feet or 28 meters wide, and 175 feet or 53 meters high. The world marveled at the ship's enormity, and we still recognize it for its size today. But the Titanic was actually quite small compared to many of today's cruise ships. Take, for example, the world's largest modern cruise vessel. Named the Symphony of the Seas, this Royal Caribbean ship is over twice as wide as the Titanic. Its gross tonnage is more than 5 times that of the Titanic, and with a carrying capacity of 6,680 passengers, it can hold nearly 4,250 more people. Symphony of the Seas has 18 decks, double the amount of the Titanic, and has 24 pools, a full-size basketball court, rock climbing walls, movie screenings, live performances, a mini golf course, a carousel, an ice skating rink, and other amenities that would never have fit on the Titanic, which, in comparison, had a measly heated pool, squash court, Turkish bath, billiards, and a gym. But at 984 feet or 300 meters long, even the shortest vessel on today's list of the 64 largest cruise ships is over 100 feet or 30.5 meters longer than the Titanic. Simply put, as famous as the Titanic is for its size, it's dwarfed by more than a handful of modern vessels, which would have left the ill-fated passengers of 1912 in complete shock and awe.
Number 8. The Canadian Mermaid. In the mid-1960s, passengers travelling on a ferry off the mainland in the Canadian province of British Columbia spotted something strange. A woman with long blonde hair was seen sitting on a rock for over an hour on the entrance to a body of water known as the Active Pass. But this was no ordinary woman. Witnesses say she had the lower body of a fish or porpoise. Even stranger, she was reportedly seen slurping down a silver salmon while enjoying the wake washing over her. A couple of days later, the mermaid made headlines, with the local newspaper offering up a $25,000 reward for the capture and subsequent confirmation that the mermaid was indeed real. With stories continuing to swirl about whether people truly saw her or she was the figment of an overzealous visitor's imagination, it took some time to prove that the mermaid was, in fact, a publicity stunt, cooked up to promote a local fishing derby. If you're wondering how such stories get started and why some choose to believe in mythological creatures like mermaids, a Canadian reporter wondered the same thing, and it was her search for the truth that offered some insight. Looking into the roots of Canadian history, she uncovered a legend of a native who lived by a lake with his family. Warning his children not to go into the sea, the man was later devastated to find that his daughters had defied him, and having gone for a swim, they found themselves trapped. Too heavy to pull themselves from the water, the girls later grew to be snakes from below the waist, later transforming even more with long black hair and bright black eyes. Over time, more stories emerged about mermaids and their gifting energy in guiding and watching over those at sea. Mermaids were often believed to be manatees, mistaken for the mythical creature. Whether they originated in mythology or were just wishful thinking from someone stranded at sea, mermaids continue to set imaginations running wild, the same way the mermaid in mainland British Columbia did, even if the truth behind the sighting is more fiction than fact. Number 7. The Kaiwi Point Mermaid. It took 50 years for a Hawaiian dive boat captain to capture a local legend on film. Reported off the coast of Hawaii's Big Island since the late 1940s, dive master Jeff Leacher finally photographed the elusive creature that locals had come to know as the Kaiwi Point Mermaid. While exploring the ocean about 20 miles or 30 k's off the Kona coast, Leacher was with 6 other divers when he photographed the magical creature. Having heard stories of the slippery creature for years, Leacher was heading out to the dive spot when he noticed a school of dolphins following the boat. Thinking nothing of it at first, he continued until one of the passengers started yelling and pointing off into the distance. Scanning the horizon, Leacher spotted what looked like a nude woman about 10 feet or 3 meters from the bow of the boat. Describing her as having long flowing hair and one of the most beautiful faces he'd ever seen, Leacher immediately knew she wasn't human. Watching as she swam as fast as the pod of dolphins, he knew she was something otherworldly. Dolphins are incredibly fast creatures, and this woman was keeping up with them without a problem. leaping into the air a couple of times before disappearing below the surface. The creature was described by Leisha as having scales across the lower half, as well as having a massive sparkling fishtail. After disappearing underwater, the mermaid seemingly disappeared, but about an hour later, when the divers were photographing fish underwater, Leisha felt something brush up against his leg. Suddenly, the mermaid shot past him like a streak of lightning. Luckily, Leisha was quick thinking and managed to snap a photo of her swimming overhead. As she broke for the surface and swam away, he captured a stunning photo that 3 noted photography labs have since verified as genuine. Studied by experts, the photos have been authenticated, lending some truth to the story that has been talked about around Kauai Point for decades. If I was a mermaid, I'd want to hang out in Hawaii too. If you believe mermaids are real, where do you think they would be? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons too. Number 6. The Oceanic from Indonesia. During World War II in the 1940s, Japanese soldiers were stationed in a 555 square mile or 1400 kilometre square area in the Key Islands in Indonesia. There was a lot of action going on at this time, so the fact that soldiers recalled encounters with mermaids was a little far-fetched to say the least. Local villagers were quite familiar with these creatures, but they had a different name for them, calling them orang ikan, which actually translates to manfish. The creatures were described as having pink or salmon-coloured skin, being around 5 feet or 1.5 metres tall, with spikes on their skin, shoulders and neck. They were also said to have a mouth that resembled a carp. Instead of having a fishtail, like mermaids had, these creatures were said to have long arms and frog-like legs, both of which had sharp talons at the end. The Japanese soldiers recorded multiple different sightings, saying they even saw some on land, suggesting they were amphibious, but mostly seemed at home in the water. In one instance, a troop of soldiers came upon a natural lagoon. They noticed some thrashing going on in the water, and when they went closer to investigate, an orangutan jumped out of the water and onto a nearby rock. It looked at the soldiers and made a gurgling, burping noise that didn't sound very friendly. They then saw another creature moving smoothly in the water, coming right at them. Not knowing the intention of the strange creatures, the soldiers started shooting. This must have frightened the creatures because they quickly disappeared from view. After the war, Taro and others went back to the islands to try and find proof of the orangutan, but they were never able to get anything definitive. Number 5. The Mermaid from Southern Africa. You might think that all of these stories of real-life encounters with mermaids come from hundreds of years ago, but as recently as 2012, workers in Zimbabwe started telling tales of mermaid sightings in a local dam. Locals started to steer clear of the Gwenhava Dam in Gokwe, claiming to have heard voices and having to chase away mermaids for stealing all the fish. Living in fear, villagers in different parts of Zimbabwe claimed that both a male and a female mermaid started to accost them. Said to live in a small river near the border of Zimbabwe and Mozambique, the mermaids are to blame for reported attacks. One such attack occurred when a primary school teacher was walking home and decided to use a shortcut by crossing a small river. Spotting something she described as a whirlwind coming towards her, the teacher was engulfed by the force and fell into the water. Claiming to see a bizarre mermaid with long hair and a male swimming alongside her, the teacher suffered arm and leg injuries as well as damage to her teeth during the attack. Another villager experienced a similar encounter, spotting what he described as a huge fish the size of an adult human in the water. Others say they often hear drum beats and the sounds of people singing, but they never find the source of the sounds. With mermaids known to sing to lure sailors towards their rocky shores, causing the sailors to crash into the coastline, one can't help but wonder if these mermaids were doing the same to lure unsuspecting villagers to their deaths. Number 4. Mermaid of the Netherlands. In the 15th century, a story of a Dutch mermaid surfaced after milkmaids crossing a lake in the Netherlands spotted a head bobbing just above the water. At first, thinking they had imagined it, the milkmaids returned to the water one night and spotted the creature again. They described her as having long, dark hair, a human face and strong teeth. She also had a long fish tail. They watched her as she tried to swim under local boats. The mermaid became trapped by the boats and was said to have made a hideous, deafening noise. Enraged, she even used her tail to sink a couple of the boats. Later, the tired mermaid was tended to by the maids, who cleansed the seashells and moss from her hair, offering her water, milk and fish. The mermaid was suspicious of the milkmaids and didn't take the offerings at first, but after their kindness continued, she gave in and accepted their help. After that, the tale gets really strange, with reports that the mermaid was brought into a local house and domesticated, with a dame assigned to teach her how to live as a human, though she never learned how to talk and still needed help to keep her tail in a tub of water under the chair. An even weirder addition to an already fantastic tale, a reminder of the mermaid survives today, with a statue in an Edam churchyard honouring this strange creature. Number 3. Israeli mermaid. In the Israeli town of Kiryat Yam, locals and tourists have been flocking to the coast in hopes of getting a glimpse of a creature that most people believe only exists in fairy tales. In 2009, people in the town were claiming to see something that was part woman and part fish. The first local to have seen the mermaid claims that she was sunbathing, and as he and his friends approached her, she quickly jumped in the water and disappeared into the waves. They were all shocked to see that when she leaped in, she had the tail of a fish. As more stories came to light, it was apparent to some of these people that she wasn't just a mermaid, she was a very social one. The mermaid only appears at sunset, and she'd perform various tricks and acts for people near the beach before disappearing into the night. Naturally enthralled by this turn of events, the people started spreading more and more stories about the mermaid. The town council even offered a literal $1 million reward to anyone that could get a picture of the mermaid to prove that she was real. Hundreds of people swarmed the beaches in order to try and get their $1 million shot. As you can guess, it didn't work out for them. And while the mermaid has been seen since, it was not in a way that made anyone richer, and thus the hunt continues. Number 2. Scottish mermaid. In the early 1800s, a group of villagers in the Outer Hebrides off the coast of Scotland were cutting seaweed when they spotted a strange creature out in the water. After relaying the sighting to some nearby men, they tried to capture the creature, who they described as a miniature woman. After being hit with a rock from a buoy nearby, the creature cried out in pain before slipping below the surface of the water. Sadly, the creature washed ashore a few days later. Described as a well-developed woman, but the size of a 4-year-old, crowds formed around this strange creature, with most agreeing it was a mythological mermaid. The local sheriff heard the story and actually had a shroud and coffin brought to the beach, promptly burying the mermaid in a nearby churchyard. Interestingly, her funeral was said to be one of the largest ever attended on the island. No one knows the true origins of the creature or why locals paid her such respect after she died, but her story is one that continues to whisper in the sound of waves crashing along the shores of local beaches. Number 1. The Orkney mermaid. The Orkneys, a small group of islands near Scotland, seem like the perfect place for a mermaid sighting, so it might not surprise you that there have been multiple reports of silkies and finfolk. The most famous is known as the Dearness mermaid, which took place over a few summers in the late 1800s, with hundreds of eyewitnesses swearing they'd spotted a 7-foot or 2-metre long creature with snow-white skin that swam easily in the sea. Later, in 1913, multiple sightings of a similar creature came from the southeastern coast of the Orkneys. Although no one ever got close enough, they described the creature as having scales like a fish. What the observers were clear on was that she had an elongated shape and that storms followed soon after she was spotted. Interestingly, in that area of the world, cold northern waters mix with warmer air, creating a swirling mass over the sea. The atmosphere changes, distorting things that are at sea level, making them look taller than they are wide. So could that have been the explanation for mermaid sightings in the Orkneys? Some scientists think that the top of a seal's head or even a rock can look like a towering woman, which may explain the multiple reports that came from both fishermen and villagers in this isolated part of the world. Still, it's interesting to see that so many different cultures have tales of these half-fish, half-human creatures, ones that keep the mystery of the world's oceans alive.
8. Thorny devil. The thorny devil, also known as the mountain devil, thorny dragon, thorny lizard and moloch, typically inhabits the dusty barren desert that covers the majority of Central Australia. This lizard has a very distinctive look. Spikes and scales cover the top of their body, which helps it to defend itself from would-be predators. It also has a spiny, false head located on the back of its neck, made of soft tissue which it shows off while hiding its real head between its forelegs to confuse predators. Their spikes and scales are multicolored, red, grey, brown and tan, and they serve a specific purpose: to dissuade other creatures that may want to eat them. What kind of animal wants to swallow a lizard covered in spikes? That can't feel good. They can fill their chest with air, puffing up. Another great reason not to make this lizard a snack. They are also able to change colours to blend in with the shades of the desert. This color-changing mechanism can only occur when a number of factors are in their favor, including time of day, weather, and actual location. Their unique look means they are sometimes mistaken for twigs by unsuspecting birds, and their long tail sometimes comes in handy, with the animal using it as an extra leg when attacked, placing it against the ground to prevent predators from flipping them over. They're not very big, only reaching about 8 inches or 20 centimeters long and weighing 70 to 95 grams or 2.5 to 3.4 ounces. Their diet consists strictly of only ants, a lot of ants, 3,000 at a time sometimes, capturing them with their sticky tongues. Another fun fact, they can drink water through their feet. They have tiny channels and microgrooves on their skin, which enables them to gather water and for it to flow without having to use their mouths. They'll often walk through dewy areas or just wait for it to rain and allow the rain to drip onto their backs, which is channeled through right into their mouths. 7. The camel spider. Camel spiders are nightmare creatures that have absolutely no business existing anywhere in the universe. This disgusting spider is a freakish mix between a scorpion and a spider, with a massive pair of fangs that it uses to bite unsuspecting victims and lounge around in the desert making really horrible noises. Be warned, camel spiders are known to hide in people's shadows to escape the brutal heat of the desert. You better hope it doesn't get hungry. At 6 inches or 15 centimeters in size, the camel spider is about the size of a teacup. But regardless of how big it is, the spider lives in the deserts of Iraq, and you would never see one coming at you through the sand. Especially since camel spiders run at a top speed of 10 miles or 16 km per hour, according to National Geographic. How fast can you run? Because I doubt you can outrun a marauding camel spider as it streaks across the desert sands. But don't worry, they are not venomous to humans. These spiders don't even like eating people, contrary to the myths of camel spiders eating soldiers while they slept during the war. They would much rather snack on some rodents, lizards, or small birds. In fact, this arachnid has massively strong jaws that are sometimes a whole third of its body length. 6. Chinchorro mummies. While you might be familiar with the mummies from ancient Egypt, you might be surprised to know that other cultures also had mummies. But where the ancient Egyptians embalmed their dead, other cultures didn't, instead allowing them to mummify naturally. The Chinchorro people of Chile are one such culture whose dry climate naturally preserved corpses. It wasn't uncommon for the Chinchorro to mummify their dead, leaving them in the sand to naturally desiccate or dry out. Known to have lived in fishing villages along the coast of Chile and Peru, the Chinchorro actually started mummifying thousands of years before the Egyptians did. But how did they start this strange practice? Some researchers think the Chinchorro people may have adopted the ritual due to environmental changes, with the Atacama Desert playing an integral role in the culture's traditions. Interestingly, the Chinchorro actually had 5 different styles of mummification, with the black and red mummies being the most common. But why did they use so many different techniques? And how did they differ? The black mummies were made by taking apart the body of the deceased, treating it, and then reassembling it. Red mummies were made in a similar way to those found in ancient Egypt by making incisions on the body to remove the organs and then drying out the body cavity. Afterward, both styles of mummy were filled with sticks and reeds, adorned with a wig and a clay mask placed on their faces. Sadly, even though these mummies have survived for thousands of years, climate change is putting them at risk. Some of the mummies being held at museums have started to deteriorate, with some even turning into a black ooze as a result of bacteria on the mummies. As conservators try to find the right combination of humidity and temperature, we can only hope they are able to preserve these mummies as a lasting legacy to the Chinchorro people. 5. Mini dinosaur. Deep in the deserts of the United Arab Emirates lives a spiny-tailed reptile known as the dub lizard. It is also known as the Salakat al-Sara, which means fish of the desert, or the dragon or little dinosaur of the desert. They're also sometimes referred to as little dinosaurs. The size of these lizards varies depending on how much they eat, with some coming in around 2 feet or 0.6 meters long. They can be dark or light grey with spots and stripes on their backs. They have a slow metabolism that allows them to go for weeks at a time without food. Lucky them! The species is actually a bit of a mystery to researchers, as they tend to hide out in burrows. They have also been known to sunbathe, lying motionless on their backs and making them look very much dead until they wriggle away and bolt back into their dens. The dub usually isn't one to fight that often, but when they do, they hiss and swing around their muscular tail and expose their teeth to scare off would-be attackers. The discovery of a bone dump with the remains of 145 lizard skeletons near an oasis site in the Saudi Arabian desert points to evidence that ancient people once ate these lizards. Part of a mosque complex, Al Yamama, which was occupied from the 2nd century BC to the 1800s, also had layers of camel and goat bones. The find shows that the desert-dwelling nomads had been eating animals, including these mini dinosaurs, for at least 2,000 years. 4. The flick-flack spider. Researchers working in the Moroccan desert were a little surprised when they stumbled upon a spider that was able to propel itself off the ground and cartwheel up and down hills. Submarine Reichenbergi, or the flick-flack spider, has a variety of gymnastic moves that allows it to do handsprings and somersaults to skitter across sand dunes. Using this escape maneuver allows the spider to move at a whopping 6 feet or 1.8 meters per second, which is not bad for such a small arachnid. The spider is nocturnal, feeding on moths before sunrise. The flick-flack is relatively small, with both male and female bodies measuring no more than 3/4 of an inch. It is a member of the huntsman spider family, but the flick-flack spider differs from another similar spider, the golden wheel spider, who can only cartwheel down sand dunes, but not go up. In both cases, the spider performs these maneuvers when they feel threatened. But even though this move might seem like it would get the spider out of sticky situations, it can still be dangerous to the spider itself. If they have to perform these maneuvers too many times, the spider can die of exhaustion. When it's not cartwheeling away from a predator, the flick-flack spider will walk, just like its less gymnastic cousins. Just as bizarre as the flick-flack's escape method are the tube-shaped homes it builds. They take sand, mix it together with their spider silk, and they build burrows in the sand dunes that protect them from the scorching heat during the day, as well as predators. 3. Chupacabra, or Bigfoot. A strange-looking beast was captured on video in Portugal, and it has some people thinking it could be actual footage of the mythical Chupacabra. The video shows a strange, human-like creature pacing through the desert for a few seconds before disappearing behind a bush. The footage first surfaced in 2016. It's a little grainy and filmed at a distance, but it zooms in on the slowly moving creature. The tall being has a stooped posture and plods slowly without showing any signs that it knows it's being filmed. But could it really be evidence of the infamous goat sucker talked about in Central and South American legend? The Chupacabra is well known in Latin American cultures. It's often the culprit farmers blame when they find their goats and cattle with their blood drained. Reports of the strange animal first started in the 1990s when sightings of the creature, which was said to be about 5 feet or 1.5 meters tall, with spikes down its back and long claws surfaced. But the first sighting took place in Puerto Rico when a local woman spotted what she thought was an alien-like creature out her window. So how could this footage from Portugal be the same type of creature? The original story spread across Puerto Rico, then traveled to Latin America and into the United States. Even as UFO enthusiasts latched onto the story, it took on a life of its own, and now it seems to have jumped to Portugal, where this new footage surfaced. Either way, stories of this kind are not only bizarre, but they seem to spread far and wide, taking on a life of their own. 2. Pterodactyl fossil. The discovery of a 210 million-year-old dinosaur in the Utah desert was quite impressive on its own. But as scientists did further research, they believed it may have been the first flying vertebrate on Earth. The discovery of these new fossilized remains would push the timeline of flying vertebrates back by 65 million years to the Triassic period. The pterodactyl was a very strange creature with a pelican-like pouch. It had massive fangs and a wingspan of 5 feet or 1.2 meters. Was it a bird? Was it a dinosaur? It was actually neither, but it lived at the same time as the dinosaurs. The specimen found in Utah was remarkably well preserved, with a nearly intact skull, including brain case, the lower jaws, and part of a wing. It was also much larger than other pterosaurs that existed around the same time. Before this discovery, there were only 30 known fossilized remains of Triassic pterodactyls, with nothing more than a single bone. And they were always found in the Alps, never in the desert. Scientists now think they were more widely distributed around the planet and in more varied environments than originally thought. Number 1. Whale Graveyard. A trove of 40 fossilized whale skeletons were found next to the Pan American Highway when excavations were being performed to expand the highway through the Atacama Desert in Chile. It's believed to be the richest treasure trove of fossil marine mammals ever found. The find included the bones of whales, dolphins, seals, large fish similar to swordfish, and an extinct species of aquatic sloths that were believed to have lived from 6 to 9 million years ago. Initial explanations pointed to a mass stranding. When whales die, they usually rest on the seabed, but after analysing the conditions, orientation and position of the bones, the animals are believed to have died at sea, later washing ashore. Pointing to harmful algae blooms, the animals would have suddenly died from ingesting the toxins, becoming buried in the tidal flat. It isn't an uncommon occurrence. Even modern marine animals suffer the same fate. But, remarkably, researchers believe the same thing happened more than once, with the remains found in 4 different layers. Over time, the bones were covered by tectonic plates that pushed the shoreline up, later transforming into a desert about a half-mile from the modern-day coastline.
Number 10. The Black Hole. Water slides make us feel a sense of nostalgia. How can you not? Remember being a kid and feeling the wind in our hair and water under our butts as we hurl down a slide into a big pool? Well, sometimes that feeling never leaves us, even as adults. Do you still enjoy water slides? Because the world doesn't fall short of offering amazing slides that even grown-ups can enjoy. Like this one, the Black Hole. With a name like the Black Hole, it isn't surprising that this water slide would offer a thrilling ride for those looking to cool off on a hot summer day. Located in Bremerhaven, Germany, the slide is what one might imagine sliding through a black hole in space would be like. The riders start their journey off in total darkness. The water slide starts flashing red, green and blue lights to set the tone for one wild experience. LED rainbows, dot patterns and shooting stars are the other light effects you will be treated to if you have the stomach, heart and eyes for the dazzling display. It almost makes you feel like you're travelling through time or to a new futuristic dimension. Originally, the Black Hole was just a simple tunnel slide, but the owners of the leisure pool, Bad One, upgraded it to a tube slide with various light effects and daylight rings to give an out-of-this-world experience for visitors. At 256 feet or 78 metres long and 25 feet or almost 8 metres tall, the Black Hole is an eye-catching water slide that takes thrill-seeking to the next level. Number 9. Divertical. The next time you're at the amusement park and you feel like you have to choose between a roller coaster and a water slide, you won't have to pick just one. At Mirabilandia, an amusement park in Italy, the Divertical ride combines the action of a coaster with the refreshing fun of a water slide for one unique ride that you'll want to go on again and again. It's the highest water coaster in the entire world. The Divertical is for the adrenaline junkies who want to take a ride in an offshore-style race boat. Stretching 164 feet or 50 metres into the air, the ride features single-car trains that can reach speeds of up to 59 miles per hour, almost 100 kilometres per hour. Unlike traditional water slides that pump water from the top, sending riders quickly down to the bottom, the Divertical combines the wet and wild fun with the thrill of twists, turns and deep dives down tall arches and coaster tracks. It begins by sending riders to the top on a high-speed conveyor belt. Riders in their specially designed raft will travel up electrifying peaks and plunge into a refreshing pool below. This is a wild ride that gives visitors the best of both worlds. Number 8. Shimilong Water Park, China. A Chinese water park that supposedly has the highest attendance numbers in the entire world, Shimilong Water Park offers 3 exclusive water slides that have definitely put the park on the map. With the funnel-shaped Tornado 60, Behemoth Bowl 60 and Kids Tornado 24, the park, located in Guangzhou, China, first opened its doors in 2006. Since then, it has been a top attraction for locals and tourists alike. Even if you aren't much of a thrill seeker, there are also rides that are a little more tame and massage pools for those who want to simply relax and enjoy the day. But the fun doesn't only take place in the sun. At night, the park transforms into a flashy party-like atmosphere with a DJ, an aquatic flying trapeze team and other water shows that use jet-powered water to propel their performers through the air. Talk about a killer atmosphere. One that makes visitors feel like they are spending the night out at a club. With over 2 million visitors every year, the setting at Shimilong is also quite stunning. Stone temples overgrown with vines and tombs that peek out from beneath breathtaking waterfalls, you are in for a fully immersive experience, one that is both visually and physically thrilling. Number 7. Cyclone and Vertigo. The next time you head to the beautiful country of Spain on vacation, be sure to drop in at Aqualandia. It's an amusement park that has 15 water slides for all ages to enjoy. Home to Europe's highest standing slide as well as the highest capsule slide, Aqualandia is the perfect place for adrenaline junkies. Start with a lazy float along an 8-foot or 2.5 metre approach. You'll be carried into a large vortex that spans 65 feet or 20 metres, catapulting you down a 45-degree angled slope into a plunge pool below. The largest water park in all of Europe, Aqualandia has numerous slides, including ones that are a little tamer, like the jacuzzi-style pool, complete with a waterfall and an exotic cave for those who want a more relaxed vacation experience. But it's also home to slides where riders race down wildly curving tubes in a race to the finish. Aqualandia also has a breathtaking freefall attraction called the Vertigo, with a 10-foot or 3-metre drop. Definitely not for the faint of heart, but one thrilling way to spend your day cooling off. What's your favourite type of water slide? Ones in a raft or slides that drop? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. Wet n Wild Orlando. Home to all kinds of fun, Orlando is mostly known for Disney World and Universal Studios, but there is also an awesome water park there too. Not all good things can last forever though, not even water parks. It was a sad day for residents of Orlando when America's first water park, Wet n Wild, closed its doors in 2016. But before that, the park had quite the reputation. It was rated one of the top water parks in the USA. Wet n Wild set the bar for the variety of attractions, including high-speed body rides and lazy rivers for those who just wanted a day of taking it easy in the warm weather. With its 250-foot or 76-metre near-vertical water slide Des Stuka, Bombay, a trapdoor slide that featured a 6-storey plunge, and Disco H2O that launched visitors through a groovy light and show sound, Wet n Wild really lived up to the hype. But despite all its success, Wet n Wild also had some not-so-great events take place, including an injury to a man that resulted in a $1.73 million lawsuit. After getting struck by something on his way down the ride, the man could not move his legs after landing at the bottom. But before the mishap, the park enjoyed much success with over a dozen water slides, plunge pools, surf coasters and inner tube rides. The park was built in the 1970s with multiple expansions, more thrilling rides and special live music and dance festivals. Wet n Wild was not only a great place to spend time for those on long summer days, but it has a place in Orlando history. Have you ever been to Wet n Wild? What was your favourite ride there? Let us know in comments. Number 5. Cheetah Chase. Water slides are fun and inner tubes are a great way to chill, but if you're more of a thrill seeker, the Cheetah Chase ride at Holiday World in Indiana is the ride for you. The first ever water coaster that allows you to race against other riders, the Cheetah Chase uses special water-powered flat launch that will propel you through the ride. With 4 riders allowed per raft, you can gather a group of friends and go head-to-head with another team through rally points and flying saucer elements that feature a wild curve to launch you through the course even faster. This 1,700-foot or 520-metre long ride is the world's first launched water coaster. Relatively new on the scene, it first opened in 2020, but has made quite the splash, pun intended, blasting riders up to 27 feet or 8 metres in the air and reaching a top speed of 30 feet or 9 metres per second. Hold on to your britches. Number 4. King Cobra. It isn't uncommon for riders to get a little enthusiastic while taking a ride down a water slide. Sometimes things can go a little off the rails, which is what happened to a pair of friends who were visiting Six Flags Hurricane Harbor in New Jersey one summer. Home to the King Cobra, a snake-themed ride that offered a unique experience for guests, Six Flags is a well-known theme park throughout the USA. Shaped in a figure 8, riders could slide down one of 2 tubes, racing to the sidewinder portion at the end that was shaped like the mouth of a massive cobra. Yikes! Unfortunately, the ride had a bit of a setback when a woman was injured on the 256-foot or 78-metre racing slide. Using a double tube from another ride, the visitor and a friend took to the King Cobra, but because of the different tubes she used and the fact that both riders exceeded the maximum weight allowance, they got a little too much speed when going down the ride and slammed into the mouth of the snake. Ouch! After racing through the circular path, through the various twists and turns, they were going down the sudden 25-foot or 7.5-metre plunge. The momentum was just too much for the riders to handle. Plunging at a 50-degree angle, they went slamming into the jaws of the cobra, with one of the riders breaking her ankle in the too fast, too furious process. Sadly, due to the negative publicity of the subsequent lawsuit filed by the rider, the park decided to remove the ride to make way for another one. And even though there are other rides and the king cobra was replaced, it still has a fond place in the hearts of visitors who had the chance to experience this rip-roaring ride. Do you think it's fair that the ride had to be closed down after someone too heavy and using the wrong tube hurt herself? Let me know in the comments below. Number 3. Città del Mare. Sure, heading to your local water park is a fun way to spend a summer day, but why not go all out and take a dip in the Mediterranean while you're at it? The Città del Mare Hotel in Sicily has an exclusive feature for guests, a 3-level water slide that will catapult you directly into the sea below. Carved into the face of a cliff, the toboggan slide drops riders into 3 different plunge pools throughout the ride, with the final slide sending you shooting out into the Mediterranean Sea. Located at one of the largest holiday resorts in Sicily, the 11 slides split over 4 levels offer spectacular views of the Gulf of Castellamare. With breathtaking views over the bay, the resort also has various pools, beautiful gardens and entertainment every night at an outdoor amphitheatre. But the water slides are a thrilling addition for those who want to experience a bit of a thrill along with the gorgeous view, not to mention the clear blue Mediterranean Sea from the highest slide in Europe. Number 2. Dolphin Plunge. Ready to take a twisting, turning ride through an underwater world? Then head to Aquatica, the water park at SeaWorld Orlando. With twin slides that send visitors in a corkscrewing ride, riders are plunged into total darkness before being blasted back through the underwater tube, surrounded by a black and white Commerson's dolphin pod. These playful porpoises are known to get up to electrifying speeds, so don't be surprised if one of them races alongside you as you catapult down your racing tube. These playful animals love to swim upside down, so after you experience the thrill of your ride, you can visit one of the viewing windows to watch them frolic through their underwater playground. A combination of excitement and the beauty of nature, Dolphin Plunge has something for everyone and gives visitors the feeling of swimming with one of nature's friendliest animals at a beautiful and fun pace. Number 1. Aquaventure. With over 30 slides and attractions, Atlantis Dubai is one of the world's largest water parks. Showcasing epic heights, wild turns and thrilling high-speed drops, you will definitely get your money's worth at this killer attraction-filled park. Whether you take the plunge down the Odyssey of Terror with its chilling drop to experience true weightlessness, or blast a raft down the almost 1,500 foot or through a series of dark tunnels, the rides at Aquaventure are not short on thrills. If these wild rides aren't for you, Medusa's Lair is waiting for you, with an intricate web of twists and turns that send you zooming through dark caves, down steep slopes and dropping you into the plunge pool at the bottom. With gravity-defying rides, hypnotic racing tubes and adrenaline-fueling body slides, you can race to your heart's content. A truly satisfying day out for all adrenaline junkies. Thanks for watching! Which of these water slides would you like to try? Have you had the chance to experience any? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!